All right, guys, you ready for a message today? This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun message, and it's a fun weekend to preach, kind of the beginning of the holiday season. Thanksgiving weekend 2023 is hard to believe. It's already come and gone. We hardly knew it. So I'm glad that you guys are celebrating and worshiping with us. And I hope you've had some time to reflect and celebrate with your friends and with your family as well. It's a big time of year for a lot of us. It can also be a difficult time of year for a lot of us. And that's part of the reason we've been doing this series that we've been in called Doubting God. We've actually kind of taken the last few weeks and we've tried to walk through some of the most common doubts that we all experience about God, whether it's doubts about our own standing with God, doubts that stem out of our relationships with people, and the ways we've been treated that make us wonder about God, doubts about who God is and how he's acted in our lives. And today we're coming to a different kind of doubt as we're wrapping up this series and getting ready for our Christmas series next week. We're going to be talking a little bit about doubts that come not from our hearts, not from our spirits, but from our minds. And I want to talk a little bit about the relationship between science and faith, rationale and faith. Is it possible that faith is a rational thing? Is it a reasonable thing? And if so, what does that mean? What does that mean? Let's dive into it. We're going to be in Psalm 19 today. I'm just going to read 2 verses to you. I got you guys off the hook early today. Look at that. 2 verses of Psalm 19, and it says this. It says, the heavens proclaim the glory of God. Say, the heavens proclaim it. The skies display his craftsmanship. Say, the skies display it. Day after day, they continue to speak. Night after night, they make him known. My message title that I've taken for today is, Who's Afraid of the Big Bad Truth? Who's afraid of the big bad truth? Would you pray with me? Let's invite God into this conversation. Jesus, as we come before your word this morning, would you open our ears? Would you open our minds? Would you kind of inspire in us an openness to who you are? Teach us from the depths of our souls about how to be more trusting and reliant on you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. You know, as we wind down our series about doubts that many of us have about God, and as we're in this whole Thanksgiving weekend, a lot of us have been spending time with family, a lot of us have been spending time with friends. The one thing that you may have been reminded of in the past few days, maybe had it underscored in your life, is that you have some very, very wonderful people in your life. I know I've been reminded of that the last few days as well. Another thing you may have been reminded of the last few days is that you have some very strange people in your life. Can I get an amen? You have some very weird people in your life, and they say weird things and do weird things. Sometimes people, the things that people choose to talk about at family gatherings can get a little weird, can get a little difficult, a little bit strange. It can get awkward and sometimes downright certifiably crazy. That's just the reality of how holidays go. I'm a pastor. It's my job to notice these things and talk about them. So it's the reality. And all of us face this, no matter what our family and friends situation is. Let me just prove it to you real quick and give you a couple of things here, okay? Did you know that multiple studies, this isn't one random thing, multiple studies and surveys have proven that 7% of Americans believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That's real. Listen, these people have driver's licenses. These people have children, okay? These people vote. I'm just saying, okay? 7% of Americans believe that. I think that's kind of crazy. I think that's a little bit crazy that someone would believe that. 6% of Americans report that they believe that unicorns are real. Yep, see? There they are, right there. They're sitting over to my left. We can pray for that side. Listen, that's not a small number of people who believe in unicorns. That's not a small number, okay? And listen, I know that for some of you, you're like, he's destroying my whole world right now. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to destroy your world, but listen, we're going to get you through this. I know your walls are crumbling all around you right now, but no, unicorns are not real, and I'm not going to lie to you about it. And look, it's pretty messed up that you think they are, okay? It just is. 25% of Americans think that God has a role to play in who wins the Super Bowl, okay? 50% of football players hope they do, that he does, you know, and they're praying hard. We'll see what happens. And there are as many Americans, check this out, there are as many Americans who believe that Bigfoot is real as there are Americans who believe that the Big Bang Theory is true. I'm not saying they're the same people, okay? I'm probably not. I'm just saying there are as many in each camp. And I'm not sure if that tells us more about our knowledge of science or our theories about what's happening in the woods when we're not there. I'm not really sure what that says about us. But in the spirit of preparing for today's message, okay, and this Thanksgiving, after we were done sharing at our family table what we were grateful for and going around and talking about that as a family, I asked my own family, my own people, these are my flesh and blood, y'all. I was talking to them about what are the weirdest things? I want to know, what are the weirdest things that you guys believe? Or what are the weirdest things that the people you know believe? And let me just tell you, pray for my family. We had people telling stories about going blind if you look at the microwave while it's running. Anybody ever heard a version of that? Yeah, that's a thing, right? People believe that. We had people talking about believing. I can't even say it. We had people talking about how the moon, they thought the moon followed them. Because you get out and you look at the stars in the night sky and the moon is out there. You get in your car and you go somewhere else and you get out, it's still there. Followed me all the way here. Oh my gosh. I'm telling you, for the next hour, all around our table, people gave all kinds of theories about how God relates to the earth, what happens after you die, just all of this kind of stuff. I'm just telling you, and I submit this to you as your pastor, that it is my professional, my educated and professional opinion that people believe crazy stuff. That is my conclusion, okay? And it's not just random weird stuff that people believe. It's stuff about religion, and it's stuff about spirituality as well. Stuff about church people. Church people believe weird stuff. Did you know that? There are people in the world who are atheists, don't believe in any kind of God at all. I'm just being honest, I think it's kind of weird. I think it's kind of strange. I don't really get how you can look at the complexity of the world and the complexity of creation and think that everything around you just randomly came up from nothing and is going back to nothing. But listen, before all my atheist friends are like, that's it, I'm out, like, before you leave, I also want you to know that I'm very much aware that there's a lot of people outside the Christian faith who look at us and they think that we're weird too, okay? They think that you are super weird and so am I. Why? Because if you believe the Bible, then people on the outside look at you and this is what they think. They think that you believe in a cosmic zombie rabbi named Jesus who offers eternal life if we symbolically eat his flesh and drink his blood and telepathically accept him as our Lord so that he can remove an evil force from our soul that was originally put there by a woman in a garden who ate some fruit after talking to a talking snake. It's weird. It's a weird story. It is, right? It's just real weird. And listen, the reason I bring all of this stuff up this morning is because so far in this series, what we've been talking about throughout doubting God is the common doubts that we all have that deal with our emotions and our spirits. They have an origin in our emotional and our spiritual lives. And we've talked about the doubts that we have about God that are created when other people treat us badly. We've talked about the doubts that we have about God when we don't really understand ourselves correctly. Doubts about God based on moments that we think God himself doesn't somehow seem to handle us the way that we think that he really ought to or should. And all of these doubts that we've talked about so far, all of them are emotional in nature, they're spiritual in nature, or even relational in nature. That's kind of their origin and where they come from. But we can't do a series about doubt without also acknowledging that there are a lot of people, and maybe you're one of them, whose biggest doubts about faith, they're not emotional, and they're not spiritual, and they're not even really relational. They're intellectual. They're in your mind. They are doubts based on what we perceive to be conflicts between the world as the Bible describes it and the world as we understand it. We might think of it as a conflict in a lot of senses between faith and science. And there's a lot of people in both the Christian community and the non-Christian community who see faith and science as being really at odds with each other, in total conflict with each other. And throughout this process, they get kind of really entrenched in their positions, and they start thinking that these two things, faith and science, science and faith, they are these irreconcilable, polar opposite kinds of things, and they start to see each other as threats to one another's belief system and worldviews. Now, let me ask you something. When you were a little kid, did you ever remember seeing a cartoon or reading the story called The Three Little Pigs? You remember The Three Little Pigs? Right? And how the story goes that there were three pigs and a big bad wolf. And the first pig had a house of straw, and the wolf came along, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew their house down. And then the pigs hid in a house that was made of sticks. Remember that? And the wolf came along, and he huffed, and he puffed, and he blew their house down. And then the pigs finally went into a house that was made out of brick. And what happened? The wolf came, and he huffed, and he puffed, but he couldn't blow the house down. And the whole story, the moral of it, was don't build your house out of sticks and straw, right? In the cartoon version that I saw of it as a kid when I was growing up, the Three Little Pigs had a song that they would sing as they were going around. And it was like their trash talking song. Do you remember this song? You know, who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Big bad wolf, big bad wolf. Who's afraid of the big bad wolf? Tra la 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 la. Remember that song? Am I alone? Does anybody else remember that song? That wasn't a fever dream, right? Okay, I'm just checking. All right. No, that was the story. And it was the way, that was the whole, the pig would come along, or the pigs would run into a house, and they would just make the wolf so mad that he couldn't blow their house down no matter how hard he blew. There's a lot of people in communities of faith, and there's an awful lot of people in the communities of science who think that the house of the opposing camp is made of sticks or straw, and that their house is made out of brick. And the mortar that holds those bricks together is the truth. So for their taunting song, they are constantly singing to the other side, who's afraid of the big bad truth? Big bad truth, big bad truth. Who's afraid of the big bad truth? You are really dumb. Right? That's what we do. I never said that people of faith or science were real mature. I just said they have a song, okay? I'm just saying, we treat each other this way sometimes. And so what I want to do today is I want to address this tension between faith and science, faith and rational thought, faith and intellect. And listen, I'm not going to solve every argument today, okay? I didn't come here this morning to put every single doubt you have in your mind about Jesus out of business. Okay, that's not the approach I'm taking, but the reason I want to address it is that I don't want you to misunderstand the Christian faith and what it's about. I don't want people in the church to hold on to beliefs that are unbiblical on the one hand, and I also don't want people outside the church to think that there aren't rational, reasonable reasons that we believe what we believe. I don't want people to be divided about things that aren't essential for us to function and be the body of Christ in the world. And we got to get some things clear about that before we can do it. So in the passage we just read from Psalm 19, it says that the heavens proclaim the glory of God, the skies display his craftsmanship. Day after day, they continue to speak. Night after night, they continue to make him known. Do you understand what that means? Do you know what that means? It means that there are things about the way the natural world works that reveal things about God. It means that neither science nor faith need to be afraid of the big bad truth. Nobody needs to be afraid of it if it's true. If it's true, it's from God. Okay? Jesus said that he is the truth. And that the truth has come not to blow your house down, but to what? To set you free. That's what he's called to do. The truth is not a threat to your faith, and your faith is not a threat to your rational thinking mind. The two need each other to help make the world around you make sense. And the sooner faith and science can stop seeing each other as enemies and more properly start understanding each other, the more we can learn about the world and about God and even about ourselves. So as we move through this message today, that's the spirit that I'm preaching from this morning. Okay, I'm not trying to preach to get you to turn your brain off when it comes to your faith, and I'm also not trying to get you to turn your faith off when it comes to your brain. I'm preaching from the belief that God gave us hearts to seek Him. He also gave us minds to know Him. And we need to acknowledge that the doubts that we develop in our faith and that we live with, they can come from either place. Amen? All right. When he was talking to the Christians in Thessalonica, the Apostle Paul, he's talking to them about what happens after you die. And the way he started the conversation with them is he said, brethren, I don't want you to be ignorant about what happens after we die. In other words, I don't want you to have an ignorant kind of faith. I don't want you to have a faith that shuts off your brain. But the writer of Hebrews also adds to that faith is the substance of things that are what? Unseen. Unseen, right? At some point, all of us, faith people, science people, unicorn people, brown cow chocolate milk people, okay? All of us have to admit, everybody has to admit that we operate by faith in things that we can't always see with the ultimate certainty that we would really like to have. So can I give you a few things that I hope will help this conversation in your heart and mind this morning? Is that all right? Because listen, I want to preach to some doubts in your mind today. I want to preach to some doubts in your mind. The first thing I want to say about it is this, that the conflict between science and faith, it tends to come from either misunderstanding science or misinterpreting the Bible. Okay? It tends to come from either misunderstanding science or misinterpreting the Bible. I've always found it fascinating that there are people in both the church world and the science world who just feel so threatened by each other. It's kind of amazing to me to watch this play out. The lengths that they will go to make the other side look silly. It's just insane. And the more they do it, the more it kind of weakens their own case, because clearly you're not approaching this seeking truth. You're just trying to prove people wrong, okay? There are people in the church world, okay, and I'm in the church world, so I can talk about them. But there are people in the church world, I'll throw a name out there, Kenneth Copeland. I'm just saying. And there's other televangelists like him who they literally tried to defeat COVID-19 by condemning it in Jesus' name and trying to blow it away through the wind of God, through their own mouths. And they got on a stage and they were chanting this stuff and they were blowing on the people and like in the middle of the pandemic and all this kind of stuff. And I'm not making it up. You can actually look this up on YouTube, okay? This is real. It totally happened. And it just makes Christians look so stupid. It makes us look so ridiculous. Why? Because you look at on this TV and you think to yourself, you watch it. It never surprises me when one person does a ridiculous thing. It generally surprises me when you pan across the room and there's thousands of people there, all of whom it's a huge church. How are all of these people buying into this stuff? And a lot of people I've known who have intellectual doubts about God, I'm going to tell you right now, this is the first conversation they'll have with me. This is the first place that they're going to go with it. Seth, are you telling me that you're in the same camp with this dude? Is that what you are saying to me? And in the middle of that, listen, can we be honest? Can we just be really honest about it? Kenneth Copeland and other preachers like him are making millions of dollars off of people as they're spouting all this nonsense. How are they doing it? They're exploiting it. They're monetizing it. This isn't a ministry, it's a business. Okay? It's a business in many ways of misinformation. And so listen, it's no wonder people have doubts about faith based on science. Religion, when you look at people like this, it looks like a scam. It looks like a scam. On the other hand, I've also seen clips of guys like a real popular scientist. You've probably heard him on podcasts, seen him on YouTube, things like that. Like a real popular scientist like Neil deGrasse Tyson. He goes on podcasts all the time. And he's said things like, and this is a direct quote, "When I look at the universe and all the ways the universe wants to kill us, I find it hard to reconcile that with statements of beneficence." In other words, what he's saying is that all world religions claim to have a higher power who is a kind of like a benevolent God. He's a kind God. He's a good and he's a gracious and he's a gentle God, which, by the way, that's not even true. Not all world religions claim that, okay? But Christianity certainly does. And Tyson has made a fair bit of money himself, okay? Marketing himself as the smartest scientist in the world and poo-pooing anyone who argues with him as being unworthy of his intellect, to the point that he'll just stop answering questions when he's asked stuff, even legit questions. People will be asking him legitimate questions about his point of view. He'll just start going around and around about the same stuff over and over again. So one might say that he's exploiting his followers and also gotten very wealthy, telling everyone that religion is a scam. But what if science can help inform our faith and faith can help give a context and a meaning to our science? What if that were the case? What if in the church we actually believe that our God is so big that we have a Psalm 19 kind of faith? That's my deepest prayer for this morning, is that we develop a Psalm 19 kind of faith, that everything you discover about the world around you reveals the glory of God. There is no discovery you need to fear. There's no breakthrough you need to worry about disproving God's existence and it's a threat and it's all this. What if we were humble to admit that the Bible is made up of all kinds of just different kinds of literature, biographies and letters and prophecy and even poetry? And what if instead of being people that just ran around saying things like, well, if the love in the Bible is wrong, then I don't want to be right? Like what if instead of doing that, we admitted that we sometimes are guilty of asking questions of biblical texts that they were never intended to answer? What if in the scientific community, we stop being so dismissive of spiritual truth, acting like we have all the answers to everything and admit that it's virtually impossible, that something came from nothing all by accident, and that no matter how you study it, quantify it, justify it, examine it, none of what has been discovered in the totality of human history has been able to tell us the meaning of creation, the purpose of creation, or even where did it all come from of creation, in a large part because it's not science's job to do that, right? So just like Christianity and Christians, we try to answer questions with biblical texts sometimes, with texts that were never really meant to answer that particular question. Sometimes scientists try to answer questions with science that science was never meant to answer. Jesus said, listen, if you seek truth, you're going to find it. Okay, those who seek find. You're going to come to it. If you're intellectually honest about your faith and what you're learning about the world, if you're willing to wrestle with it, if you're willing to sit in it, if you're willing to grind with this, if you're willing to investigate, if you're willing to sweat this out, if you're really willing to work out your salvation at a root level, not just in your heart, not just in your spirit, but in your mind, if you're willing to work out your salvation, I will meet you there so that even when it's hard, you're going to be able to find it. Faith is not an irrational thing, friends. And here's my challenge to you in the doubt. Do the homework on it. Don't just develop an intellectual objection to your faith and let that be the thing that just pushes you out the door to walk away. And don't just like take part of your objection and make it so that it says something to everything you believe. Like there's a lot of people who, I'll talk to them and they're like, well, I believe in the whole Bible and everything in the Bible. And then you talk to them about tithing and they're like, oh, I don't like that part. I don't believe that part. Oh, really? That's kind of interesting how that works. Let's talk about that a little bit. Let's just be real about our assumptions in this situation. And let's be real about the differences between what we want to be true and what is true and what we're basing that on. Because here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. Number 2, science seeks the truth about our natural world. Scripture reveals the truth about our supernatural God. So listen, church, one of the greatest gifts you will ever give your faith, okay? Ever give your faith is learning how to read your Bible. And I don't just mean like learning how to read the letters and the words. I mean like learning how to read your Bible. With everything that's been going on in Israel lately, I've been hearing so many Christians making predictions about when Jesus is coming back, and they're trying to piece together all the clues and put it together like they're on National Treasure, and we're going to find the Ark of the Covenant, and we're going to do all these things. And they've got all this whole plan that's all mapped out, and it's all based on the fact that they're taking numbers and putting them into formulas and trying to like piece them together so that they can predict the day and the time and the hour that Jesus is going to return to earth. And it just kills me to watch this stuff. Why? Because they're taking like a verse like 2 Peter 3:8, okay? 2 Peter 3:8 that says, but beloved, be not ignorant of this one thing, that one day is with the Lord as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as one day. And they're interpreting this scripture as if it's an actual heaven to earth time ratio, and we get all involved in doing the math on it, and the next thing you know, we've got all the theories going on, and so much of our effort and so much of our time gets pushed into this. But is that really what Peter is saying? Is it? Are you sure about that? Right? Was Peter trying to give you an actual time frame here, as if he's trying to say that when it's 6 o'clock in New York, it's 3 o'clock in LA? Okay? Is that what Peter is saying? One day in heaven equals 1,000 years. It is a mathematical formula, people. We can bank on it. Or was he simply using a bit of figurative language called a simile, okay, to teach that God is outside of time because he's the creator of time himself? And it also harkens back to Psalm 90, where the same 1,000 to 1 comparison is used in a Hebrew poem to talk about things in this world and how they come and they go, and they're transient and they die, but our God stands eternal outside of time, therefore we can trust him. Maybe that's the interpretation. Let me ask you this. Let's break it down a little bit more close to home, okay? When Tony Stark is in Avengers Endgame, okay, and he says, I love you 3,000, okay? Is that an actual measurement of love? Or should we ask, Tony, excuse me, sir, excuse me, Mr. Stark, Mr. Iron Man, sir, 3,000 of what? I mean, are we talking 3,000 pounds, 3,000 tons of love? Are we talking like 3,000 miles of love? How? Like 3,000. Tell me more about the 3,000. Is Tony Stark trying to tell us about how much love can be measured? Not really, right? And I get it. Some of you, I can see it, like light bulbs are starting to go off. Some of you right now are like, well, that's just great. I guess the next thing you're going to tell me, Pastor, is that when my mom says she loves me to the moon and back again, that wasn't a real measurement either. Right? It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you've missed the point. Okay? It's not a statement that's meant to quantify or measure anything. It's just a statement that means your mom loves you a lot. Okay? The point of the scriptures is to reveal the truth about our supernatural God, that he stands outside of time and space, and that he broke into it and became incarnate in the person of Jesus to bring a spiritual and supernatural solution to a problem that isn't solvable by scientific and natural methods from inside of it. That's the point. So if I understand that about the scriptures, okay, and I'm starting to learn how to read the scriptures, and if I can stop like just turning off my brain when I come to my Bible reading, and I can stop taking every little bit of minutia in the Bible as just at face value. Like, for example, when David says in the Psalms that he wants to bash the heads of his enemies' children on rocks until they're dead while his enemies are watching, it's in there, okay? Yeah, it's in there. Do I really take that at face value? Like, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess David is giving his armies a battle plan. Really? Is that really what's going on? Or can I understand that David is expressing his emotions and not giving an actual battle plan to his armies? How do I know that? Because I know from other passages of the Bible that you can't be a man after God's own heart, which David was, and be someone who's like super into killing kids. Okay? That doesn't work. So what is really going on here? Is the Bible telling you what to do with children when you get ticked? Or is it trying to say something to you about the justice of God and the heart of God and what hurts the heart of God, what angers the heart of God, what kind of emotions, what is God really trying to say to us in this? On the other hand, that's just the faith side. Imagine that your car breaks down on the way to your Thanksgiving dinner, okay? And you bring it to the mechanic, and he tells you, listen, you're gonna need new spark plugs. It's just it. I mean, it's not a big deal. We can get this done, but you need new spark plugs. And then you ask the mechanic, well, that can't be true. Do you not understand where I'm going? Do you not know that I'm on my way to Thanksgiving dinner? That can't be true because I have to get to Thanksgiving. What's he going to tell you? Right? Yeah, exactly. Is he going to tell you, you know, here's why Thanksgiving is important. And here's the importance of giving thanks. And here's why family gatherings are important things. Is he going to tell you the purpose of Thanksgiving and how you're right about everything in this situation? And that it can't be true? You're completely correct. It can't be true that you need new spark plugs because that's where you're going. Is that what he's going to tell you? No. He's not going to tell you that. Why? Because his job is to figure out and to know how engines work, not to assign meaning to your journey. Okay? Does that make sense to you? Yeah? That's not what he's doing. His job is not to tell you, like, the meaning of where you're going and all of that stuff. His job is to know engines and help you figure those out so that we can break some of the ones that, or we can fix some of the ones that break on your way there. Right? You see where I'm going with all this? Do you see where I'm going? When we're working out our doubts about science and faith, we're wrestling with God about our intellectual doubts, we need to make sure that we understand the source material of where our doubts are coming from. On the one hand, Neil deGrasse Tyson gets very, very frustrated with Christians when we don't accept science as being true because it doesn't fit our narrative. That's not the story. Don't you know what this? We're here for a reason and you don't understand. On the other hand, he can't really tell you about what a benevolent, kind, and good God is in any world religion, because as someone who rejects the whole idea of an absolute creator, he's lost any ground to tell you about what's good or bad at all. There is no good or bad. There's just survival or death. That's all there is. There's a third option, though, and it's the Psalm 19 option, that the natural world reveals the glory of a God who gives meaning to things, who expresses glory through things. And the fact that we have an engine to take us to Thanksgiving at all is something we can be thankful for and understand how it works and how that might both increase our gratitude for it in all of its complexity, as well as if we really understood that, we might get there a little faster, right? I need both. I need the how and I need the why. And if I'm going to make sense of where I'm going and get there when I should, then I need both. I need a how and I need a why. Because the creation we live in is broken, and I'm trying to get home with Jesus on this train, okay? Are you with me on this? Are you with me, church? I hope so, because this is the one I'm going to leave you on. That everything requires faith. Everything. I could sit here all day long, and give you all the intellectual reasons why I believe the Bible is true and why I believe Jesus is the Son of God. I could tell you about how the Bible is one of the most scrutinized books in all of history, how we have over 5,800 Greek New Testament manuscripts, and there's no body of ancient literature in the world that even comes close to being attested to like this. We have 1,000 times more evidence that Jesus Christ existed as a real person than we do that Alexander the Great existed as a real person. I could tell you the intellectual reasons that I believe that Jesus really did get resurrected from the dead. How the disciples were tortured and killed, not just the original disciples, but the disciples for hundreds of years beyond Jesus. And none of them cracked as they were being tortured and said, "I was just kidding." None of them did. We made it all up. Okay? Listen, you don't accept torture and death if you don't really believe that what you saw was real. At least not that many people do. Okay? But when it comes down to it, you're the one who has to decide. You're the one who has to decide what you believe about all of this stuff. I know this is heady stuff today. I know that we're in your head a little bit and we're talking about big ideas, but listen, we weren't there when Jesus rose from the grave. It's a leap of faith. Scientists could tell you all about the scientific theories about how the universe works and where the earth came from and how humans came to be the people that we are and how we have yet to find the God fossil that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that God doesn't exist. Okay? They could do that all day long, but they still can't ascribe meaning to the journey. They still can't tell you how something came from nothing, or why it did, or where it's all headed, and what's going to happen when it gets there. Listen, a doctor can tell you how a person dies, but a doctor cannot give meaning to what happens afterwards. He can't even really tell you if it's a good thing or a bad thing. He can just tell you that it just is. So you have to decide what you believe about that. Where are you going to pull that meaning from? What are you going to base your conclusions on? You have to pull it from faith. Both science and belief in Jesus. All of life requires faith. It is the substance of things unseen. The question for all of us doubters out there isn't whether you're going to operate by faith. You are. It's what is your faith going to be in, and why are you putting it there? I want you to think back over this whole series. If you've been with us for a while, if you've been online thinking about this series with us, think back about this whole thing, okay? Think about the doubts we talked about that come because of something that people do. Is your faith in people or is it in God? Doubts that come because of something you did. Is your faith in yourself or is your faith in God? Doubts that come because of some kind of wrong that you feel like God did to you and you don't understand it and you haven't been able to come to terms with it at any kind of level. Well, that's a tough one, but is your faith only in good things happening to you? Or is it in God? Doubts that come up because you have honest intellectual questions. Is your hope and your faith in the spark plug and how the engine works? Or is it in the meaning of where you think the engine can take you? All of life requires faith, and a part of faith is doubt. That's why it's called faith, and it's not called certainty. We are people who walk by faith, not by sight. That doesn't always mean that it has to be a blind faith. Listen, it is not unreasonable to want to have a reasonable faith. You just need to be honest about what your faith is in. Do you think that if there is a God, that he's intimidated by your questions? Do you think he would be God if he were? Do you think he's rattled by the doubts that you have? Listen, take him to him. Investigate it. Wrestle with it. Thrash through it. Figure it out. Come together around it. Talk to people around it. Read about it. Those who seek, Jesus said, will be those that find. Who's afraid of the big bad truth? It's not Jesus. He's not afraid of it. Just be sure that as you do that in your seeking, you are open to answers that you may not have considered before. And know that there's no path in life that you can choose that doesn't require you to put your faith in something. So choose what you put your faith in wisely. God, we're so grateful that you meet us in our doubts. That just like with Thomas, you hold out your hands and your side and you allow us to investigate. You allow us to observe. You allow us to walk. You allow us to talk. You allow us to question. You allow us to seek you, to wrestle it through. You said, come, let's wrestle this out. Let's get together on this. Let's figure this out together. Let's put this thing to bed once and for all. God, I pray for courage in the middle of doubt for this church. I pray for a strength in the middle of it for each one of us here. I pray for grace to know that you're with us and that you're bigger than our questions and that you know that we need a faith that doesn't just make emotional sense or spiritual sense, but we need a faith that makes sense in our minds. You're a God who wants to have us seek you with our hearts and know you with our minds so that we can love the Lord our God with all our heart, all of our mind, and all of our souls. We pray these things in Jesus' name. And everybody said,